We have seen how low the president's approval is on his handling of Iran. But it's not just that the numbers are low, it's how far they have fallen. CNN chief data analyst Harry Enten is here. There has been substantial movement over the years.
Yeah, substantial movement. Sometimes I look at the polling data and I find a surprising nugget, one that I honestly didn't think existed, but then I dug deep in enough and found it. And, there was a great poll questions, feelings on Trump and Iran, handling Iran. Back in July of 2024, 53% of voters who said they were extremely motivated to vote said they were actually confident that Trump would be able to handle the situation in Iran. Look at where that number is now when it comes to his approval among the same group. Just 29% of those who are extremely motivated to vote in these midterm elections approve of the job that President Trump is doing on Iran. That is a giant fall. I mean, what are we talking about? We're talking about a 24-point fall in just 2 years. What was an advantage for President Trump going into the 2024 election amongst those who really wanted to turn out and vote has turned into a tremendous disadvantage this time around. Promises were made and promises were not kept. They were broken as far as those voters were concerned.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing, because he would go on the stump and talk about Iran because it was a net positive issue for him now. Now it is a very negative issue for
Republicans wish he would keep quiet about it.
Okay, now foreign policy in general is an area where in the past Republicans have seen more support than Democrats. Where do things stand now?
Yeah, if you see these numbers and you're a Republican running for the United States Congress in these midterm elections, you might say, hey, this won't impact me. Not the case. Just look at these numbers. Party trusted more in wars, conflicts, and terrorism. Back in January of 2025, look at this. Republicans were ahead by 18 points, a tremendous advantage. That advantage, because of President Trump, has turned into a disadvantage on a core key question that almost always favors Republicans. Now Democrats have a 2-point edge. That is a 20-point move that we're seeing towards the Democrats. Down the Republicans go because down goes President Trump. They are simpatico on this one.
And if you think this is something, Harry, where do Americans think this is headed? That's a real doozy.
And this, I think, perhaps is the most shocking thing about this, all these numbers that I'm bringing you today. I mean, just look at these. Okay, say U.S. will reach a good deal with Iran ultimately. Just 27% of all voters believe that. And get this, just 41% of Republicans believe it. We are seeing below 50% across the board on this issue. And this is the reason, I think, more than any other, that folks disagree with Trump on Iran, because they simply put, don't see what the point of it is. They don't see a way out of it.
Yeah, 41% of Republicans. 41%. That tells you something here about where the people think it's headed. All right, Harry, I'm old enough to remember a time when Donald Trump really wanted to win the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, I think this crushed Donald Trump's chances of winning the Nobel Peace Prize. Chance Trump wins the Nobel Prize in 2026, according to the Cash prediction markets. You go back a little bit under a year ago, it was a 33% chance. Now we're down to just a 4% chance. The Iran war has brought Trump's chances of bringing the Nobel Peace Prize down with him. I also love this photo, by the way.
Yeah, 4%, a lot closer to zero than 33. And this is something that was wildly important to him at one point. Not talking about it so much now.
To Iran itself and its dealings with Iran, I mean, a week ago, the Trump administration said the deal to open the Strait of Hormuz was imminent. Then we saw Iran retaliating by dictating terms with, that list of maximalist conditions. How much do you think Iran are in the driving seat here and deliberately perhaps overplaying their hand to press their advantage at a time of political vulnerability for Donald Trump?
Well, Iran has a very valuable tool right now, and that's the ability to dial up political and economic pressure on him less than 12 weeks before a crucial election, the midterm elections for Congress, which could have an extraordinary impact on the rest of Donald Trump's term if Democrats manage to win one or both chambers of Congress. So the president has navigated himself into a position of great weakness here. I think the happy talk last week that, we're going to get a deal within a couple of days, once again, perhaps was the administration trying to mitigate the impact of rising oil prices as they were then in the markets. But also another occasion where it's been obvious that they have misread what is going on in Iran, the strategic reality of this war and the situation in the Middle East. And that is something that both explains the position they're in now and has been consistent throughout the entire war.
And it doesn't feel very much like Donald Trump is listening to the electorate right now. I mean, how much longer can he afford, do you think, to let energy prices sour sort of voter perceptions of the economy, given obviously the midterms fast approaching?
Yeah, one of the reasons why it's difficult to see him sticking to this new line that, well, we're going to bring Iran economically to its knees is because the prospect of high gas prices running up to the midterms could be so politically damaging to Republicans. So it wouldn't, I think, at all be a surprise to see the president either revert to some kind of military action, not that that has been successful in changing Iran's mind, or to try and again create the impression that there is active diplomacy going on. Perhaps at some point he gets to a point of fatalism where he believes that he's not going to do very well in the midterms with the Republicans. We've seen some signs of that. He's said that Republicans and voters more generally are not angry with him, but they're angry with the lawmakers from the GOP in Congress. Perhaps he gets to that point and he presses on regardless. But it's a very difficult position for a lot of these Republicans. People are very angry about higher gas prices, as well as the impact on groceries and other prices that this war has had, as well as Trump's trade war. So it's a very dicey political situation. And I think you're likely to see in the coming weeks more pressure from Republicans to try and get these prices down. But how he does that, he's stuck in this strategic box in Iran. He's been trying for months to get out of this war. It's difficult to see how he can fashion an exit in the coming weeks.
You said this last round of talks was Iran's last chance before decapitation. So what now? What comes next?
You'll find out.
Are you still, are massive escalation, is that still on the table?
Well, we have that, certainly that ability if we want to do that. Yeah, you'll find out.
You said you're low-keying it with them, that you're
so.
semi-negotiating. What exactly does that mean?
Well, they asked for reparations, you might say, or they asked for money for the damage that we've done. I said, that's a good idea. Well, we're going to ask for money for the damage they've done over a 50-year period. If there's damages to be paid, I think Iran should pay those damages.
Let's discuss with retired U.S. Army Colonel Peter Mansour. Colonel, thanks so much for being with us. So CNN is reporting that Trump's top general is looking for an off-ramp from the war. He's acknowledged publicly that air power has its limits. I wonder if you think the U.S. military has done all that it can against Iran from the skies.
From the skies, for sure. The naval blockade is certainly having a large effect on their economy, and that could continue. And then the other element of power, of course, would be ground forces, but I don't see that in the cards, given the significant opposition the president would run into in Congress and among the American people.
So given this pivot from hostilities to more sort of financial warfare, if you will, as you put it, with the blockade, I wonder if you think this now will make Tehran more amenable to concessions, or does this weaken the U.S. position when it comes to extracting some form of nuclear deal with Tehran?
Well, there's a battle being played out in Tehran right now among different parts of the government. The Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps wants to continue the battle until it gets everything it wants, which is quite an extensive list of demands. The civilians, on the other hand, would see the danger to the Iranian economy, which is already in free fall, and they would like to cut a deal while one is available to them. So this has some ways to go yet. And it really is going to be decided in Tehran, not necessarily in Washington.
That's a fascinating perspective because, as you put it, there's some diversion within Iran about what direction to go in. And you have the IRGC, which is perhaps more hardline than even the president of Iran. I wonder if you think that taking the foot off the gas pedal when it comes to actual kinetic warfare would actually get Tehran to offer those concessions that the U.S. is seeking, in part because a U.S. official told Axios that continued fighting actually lets Iran dodge responsibility. Is it realistic to seek the kind of changes that the U.S. has been wanting out of Tehran by just letting things play out this way?
Well, it's a long shot that Tehran's going to agree to anything short of its maximal demands. However, I think the official from Axios is correct. If you continue to bomb Iran, they will retaliate against infrastructure around the Middle East, and they'll tell their people, hey, look, we can't do anything for you. We're under attack. If you simply stop the bombing and rely on the economic tool of warfare, the blockade and sanctions, it's going to make it very painful for the Iranian government in the long term. And I think that's actually a better path to a negotiated outcome at this point.
How long do you think that blockade of Iranian ports would have to remain in place for Tehran to offer concessions?
Months. This is not something that's going to be decided quickly. The Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps has got to feel the pain. And the only way they feel the pain is when the Iranian people are so fed up with their leadership and the state of their economy that they pressure the government to come to terms. That's going to take a long time. This war is going to go on for months, and hopefully not yours, but you never know.